Chapter 33, Part 1, To the East. A sharp wind whistled through the jagged cliffs, carrying the scent of frost and stone as the group carefully descended the Watcher's eastern slopes. Though the storm had eased, the mountain remained an unforgiving sentinel, its presence looming over them in quiet vigilance. The morning light spilled across the vast horizon, illuminating the world below, a stark contrast to the treacherous paths ahead. Lucas kept his gaze forward, his boots crunching against the hardened snow. His muscles still ached from their ordeal in the cavern, but the night's rest had dulled the worst of his exhaustion. Even so, something about this descent felt unnatural. Each step carried an unshakable weight, as if the Watcher itself resisted their passage. Beside him, Mina moved with her usual agility, her senses on high alert. Though her footing remained sure, she cast frequent glances toward Lucas, as if silently confirming that he was still with her. Their telepathic link thrummed with quiet tension, unspoken thoughts weaving between them like strands of ice-laced wind. The Watcher's still watching. Lucas didn't need to reply. He could feel it too. The mountain exuded an awareness, a quiet knowing. The closer they drew to its edge, the more the air itself seemed to hold its breath. Thomas led the way, his broad frame cutting a steady path along the uneven trail. His steps were deliberate, wary of the unstable ground beneath the fresh layers of frost. He cast a glance back at the others, his expression unreadable. Candace followed behind, her amber eyes scanning their surroundings with the practiced caution of someone who had lived among these heights. Unlike the others, she had walked this path before. Yet even she seemed unsettled, her grip tightening on the strap of her bow. Dira remained close to the middle of the group, her arms crossed as she kept pace. She had spoken little since they set off, her gaze flicking toward the shadowed crevices that lined their route. Whether she feared something lurking within, or simply distrusted the mountain's stillness, Lucas couldn't tell. Then, as they rounded a bend, the land stretched out before them, revealing the distant, glimmering expanse of the sea. For a moment, no one spoke. The sun had barely risen, casting the waters in a muted silver sheen, its surface rippling in slow, rhythmic waves. The sight was a stark contrast to the jagged wilderness of the Watcher, an unbroken horizon of quiet promise. Mina exhaled, her breath forming a faint mist in the cold air. "We're really far from everything, huh?" Thomas nodded, but his eyes didn't leave the path ahead. "We need to keep moving." The moment passed as quickly as it had come, and the group pressed on. The silence returned, stretching between them like an unseen force. Even the wind had quieted, leaving only the sound of their boots against frost and stone. Then Lucas felt it. A shift, subtle, almost imperceptible, beneath his feet. He stopped, instincts flaring. Mina froze beside him, sensing it too. Thomas, already a few steps ahead, turned sharply. "What?" Lucas didn't answer. He crouched, a gloved hand over the surface of the trail. The ice was thicker here, but not solid. Beneath the white frost, a thin crack ran along the rock, disappearing into the shadows of the mountain's folds. "Avalanche risk?" Candace murmured, stepping closer. Lucas shook his head. "No, this isn't fresh. It's—" He hesitated, searching for the right words. "It's like the mountain's been shifting." Mina swallowed, her gaze flicking upward. "Or something shifted it." The group exchanged wary glances, but there was no time for debate. They had to move forward. The Watcher was watching, and waiting. As they resumed their descent, the mountain remained silent, but its presence had not faded. If anything, it had only grown stronger. The wind stirred gently through the mountain pass, weaving through cracks in the stone like a whisper of forgotten voices. The air was sharp and crisp, each breath carrying the biting chill of the elevation. The group's descent was slow, their movements careful against the treacherous path, but silence stretched between them, heavy with thoughts left unspoken. Then, without warning, Aphyrosia spoke. "This mountain has known more than just the weight of your steps," she said, her voice carrying through the stillness. "It has carried the burdens of those who came before you, those who sought to understand the forces that now pull you forward." Lucas turned his head slightly, listening, though his pace did not slow. There was something about Aphrosia's tone that commanded attention, not through force, but through the sheer gravity of her presence. Mina flicked a glance toward Lucas, then back at the Elven Queen. She's been waiting to tell this. Aphyrosia continued, her voice smooth yet edged with something ancient. To my people, the Watcher is sacred, not as a guardian, but as a reminder. It was here, in ages past, that the first chosen gathered to receive the wisdom of the Sent Ones. They sought the relics, believing that their fates were written into them, that they would unlock the power to shape the world's balance. But they were not the only ones who listened. Dira, who had remained quiet until now, lifted her head slightly. The dwarves. Aphyrosia nodded. Yes, the dwarves too received visions. But where the elves saw guidance, the dwarves saw warnings. To them, the Sent Ones were not merely mentors, but beings who had once shaped the world through great catastrophe. Their interpretation of the relics was not of salvation, but of reckoning. Lucas felt a strange unease settle in his chest. He had spent so much time trying to understand the relics, to piece together their meaning. And yet, if Aphyrosia was right, their very nature had been seen in two entirely different lights, one as a gift, the other as a curse. Dira exhaled, shaking her head. This matches the texts I studied. The dwarves called them echoes of the Sent, remnants of a power that should never have been disturbed. But I never thought. She hesitated. I never thought the elves saw them so differently. Aphyrosia regarded her for a moment, then looked back to the sky. The truth was lost in time. What remains are fragments, prophecies twisted by perspective. But what has not changed is the Watcher itself. It has always been a place of meeting, of revelation, and now it bears witness to your path as well. The group continued downward, the crunch of loose stone beneath their boots the only sound for a long moment. The wind, no longer a whisper, stirred stronger now, pushing against their backs as if urging them forward. Lucas furrowed his brow. You said the first chosen gathered here, but if the elves and dwarves interpreted the prophecy so differently, what happened? Aphrosia's gaze did not waver. They stood together once, she said. At the heart of the Watcher, they sought answers, and what they found divided them forever. Mina slowed her steps slightly. What did they find? The relics, Aphyrosia said simply. Or rather, something older than them. Lucas's stomach tightened. Older? Not all things of power are meant to be touched, Aphyrosia said. Even the Sent Ones knew this. The elves believed they had uncovered the key to their guidance, a path forward through the prophecy. The dwarves, however, saw something else. They saw what had been buried, what should have remained buried, and they feared it. Dira's expression was unreadable. And that's when they turned against each other. It was not war, not at first, Aphyrosia admitted. It was doubt, hesitation, mistrust. But those things fester over time. The dwarves sealed the tunnels they had unearthed, believing that what they had seen was a warning to abandon the relics entirely. The elves could not let go of what they had glimpsed. Lucas exchanged a look with Mina. The weight of what Aphyrosia was saying pressed against him in a way he didn't fully understand. The relics had been his focus for so long, keys to unlocking a truth that had eluded him. But what if they weren't just keys? What if they were warnings? Thomas, who had been silent throughout, finally spoke. And what does that mean for us? His voice was steady, but the weight behind his words was undeniable. Aphrosia's silver-green eyes flicked toward him. It means that what awaits you is more than prophecy. It is history, a history that refuses to stay buried. The mountains stretched before them, silent and unyielding. The wind howled once more, but it carried something else now. Not just cold, but the echoes of something ancient waiting to be understood. The descent stretched onward, their steps steady against the shifting gravel. Though the wind had quieted, an unseen presence seemed to linger in the air, a silent witness to their passage. The weight of Aphrosia's words clung to the group, thick as the mountain mist that curled along the edges of the cliffs. After a long pause, the Elven Queen spoke again. This mountain was not always so desolate, she murmured, her voice carrying easily in the stillness. There was a time when those who followed the Chosen gathered here. They did not come seeking battle or conquest, but understanding. Lucas glanced at her, his brow furrowing. What do you mean? Aphrosia's gaze did not waver. 15 centuries ago, the Watcher was a sanctuary. It was a place where scholars, priests, and engineers from different lands sought answers to unravel the chaos of the Great Arcane Crisis. Mina exhaled sharply. The crisis, that was when? When magic itself became unstable, Aphyrosia finished, nodding. Energy grid and communication unraveling. The weather behaving unpredictably, with a lot of arcane storms all around the Great Lake where the ground zero of the explosion was. Lucas felt a twinge in his chest. He had read scraps of history about that time, but never in detail. The way Aphyrosia spoke of it, as if she had stood in its aftermath, made it feel less like legend, and more like a scar the world had never fully healed from. Dira, walking a few paces ahead, slowed her steps. The dwarves believed the crisis was a punishment, she said, that the relics contained a force too great for mortals to wield. My ancestors feared that the more we tried to control them, the worse the consequences would become. And so the divide began, Aphyrosia said. The elves believed the relics could be understood, mastered. The dwarves saw them as a warning. At first, they debated, exchanging knowledge here beneath the Watcher's gaze. Thomas frowned. But that didn't last. Aphyrosia shook her head. No, it didn't. The crisis did not simply fade, it ended abruptly. No one knew why. One day, the distortion stopped, the magic calmed. But with that relief came fear. The dwarves believed it was proof the Sent Ones had intervened, that mortals had been given a final chance to leave the relics untouched. The elves, however, believed they had reached an understanding of magic that saved them all. Mina rubbed the back of her neck. So both sides thought they were right. Exactly. Aphyrosia sighed, her expression unreadable. And as certainty grew, so did arrogance. The dwarves accused the elves of reckless ambition. The elves saw the dwarves as fearful and blind to knowledge. The unity they had here, what little of it existed, fractured. Lucas remained silent, processing. The pattern was all too familiar. The Sent Ones, the relics, the prophecy, no one seemed to agree on what they meant. The elves saw salvation. The dwarves saw ruin. And now, here he was, standing at the heart of it all, just another piece on a board that had been set centuries before he was born. And if they were wrong, the thought came unbidden, curling at the edges of his mind. What if they both misunderstood? Aphrosia's gaze flicked to him, as if sensing the question forming. In the end, the dwarves secured the relics. No one knows whether they earned them or stole them, but they took them from the Watcher, and they kept them hidden. For centuries, the subject was buried, forgotten even among the elves, until we learned the truth. She paused, her green eyes glinting in the dim light. They hid them in a temple, a hidden place far from the Watcher's gaze, the same temple where you found them in Brum'korath. The words sent a ripple through the group. Lucas exhaled slowly. Then the Watcher was never just a mountain, he said. It was the starting point. Aphyrosia nodded. And it may also be the end. Her expression remained composed, but there was something distant in her voice. Once, in her youth, the knowledge that the relics had fallen into the hands of the dwarves had enraged her. She had despised the secrecy, the way her people had been shut out from understanding their true nature. But time had softened that fire. Now, she had no interest in chasing relics. Better to leave such matters to the engineers and researchers. There were greater battles to fight. Their descent continued, but the weight of the past clung to them. The Watcher was not just a monument of stone. It was a place where paths had crossed before, where decisions had been made that shaped the fate of the world. And now, history was watching once more.